The Sheliak interrogator's mandibles clicked in disbelief as he watched the human prisoner grin maniacally through his bloodied teeth, despite the neural agony ripping through every fiber of his being. Noah Lewis was no stranger to pain. Mere hours earlier, he had been violently roused from a deep slumber aboard the UHS Retribution by the ship's screeching alarms and strobing emergency lights. Heart pounding, he snatched his pulse rifle and sprinted to the bridge, adrenaline surging through his veins. The view screen displayed a nightmare made real. A colossal Sheliak dreadnought had dropped out of warp, its plasma cannons already unleashing hell. The warship's beams slammed into the Retribution's shields with devastating force, making the human vessel shudder and groan. Damage reports flooded in as the weapons officer shouted over the chaos that their defenses were crumbling. Noah snarled an order to divert power from the backup reactor and return fire with the electromagnetic rail cannons. As the hypersonic tungsten rounds tore into the dreadnought's shields, causing them to flicker and die, Noah thought they might just survive this. He barked at the crew to press the attack, blowing gaping, smouldering holes in the enemy's hull. For a moment, victory seemed within reach. Then a second Sheliak warship materialized out of warp, joining its fellow in hammering the Retribution with wave after punishing wave of plasma fire. The human ship's captain died instantly as his console overloaded and detonated, spraying the bridge with metal shards and igniting small fires. Noah lunged for the command chair and took control, desperately rallying the crew. Sensor alarms shrieked with newfound urgency as the ops officer bellowed a warning. Sheliak boarding pods were already screaming towards the Retribution, loaded with bloodthirsty insectoid warriors intent on gutting them. Pulse rifle in hand and murder in his eyes, Noah roared for the bridge crew to prepare to repel boarders. He knew that they were hideously outnumbered and outgunned. He knew that humanity's survival hung by a thread. The Sheliak could not be allowed to seize the Retribution's databanks and discover the location of Earth. But as he charged towards the enemy boarding site to lead the defense, an icy clarity washed over him. They would win this fight or die trying. There was no other option. Noah burst through the smoke, pulse rifle sweeping for targets. The emergency lighting flashed red as energy blasts sizzled through the haze, the air thickened by alien war cries. He slid to one knee and fired, the hypersonic rounds shattering the black helmets of two nearby Sheliak warriors, dropping them instantly. More laser fire seared the bulkhead centimeters from his face as he dove into cover. Human screams echoed from further down the corridor. Leaping between cover, Noah found a cluster of crew members desperately fighting off a squad of Sheliak shock troops. The aliens slashed with wickedly hooked blades, their energy shields absorbing rifle shots. Petty Officer Rodriguez cried out and fell, a Sheliak sword buried in his chest. Noah roared and triggered his plasma launcher. The bolt slammed into the aliens, vaporizing three in a blinding explosion. As the Sheliak turned towards him, the remaining humans rallied and fixed bayonets, charging the aliens with a primal yell. Noah grappled with a towering warrior, deflecting a blade swipe and smashing his rifle stock into its faceplate, fracturing it. The alien crumpled, but another tackled Noah into the wall, sending his gun clattering away. It raised its hooked sword for the death blow, when Rodriguez surged to his feet and rammed his bayonet through the base of its skull, killing it. Rodriguez collapsed, hacking up blood. The crew dispatched the last Sheliak with ruthless efficiency. Breath-heaving, Noah retrieved his rifle and turned to the exhausted survivors. "To the armory. We're taking this fight to them." They nodded, a hard light in their eyes, and fell in behind Noah as he led them deeper into the embattled ship. The battered survivors rushed into the Retribution's armory. Noah slapped his hand on the wall panel, the racks of weapons and armor sliding out. "Gear up!" he shouted. "We're not done fighting yet." The crew hastily strapped on combat vests and snatched up rifles, shotguns, and demo charges. The ship's comm system crackled with panicked chatter. Sheliak forces were rampaging through every deck, locked in brutal room-to-room fighting with the human defenders. Suddenly, the floor lurched under their boots, sending the crew stumbling. The artificial gravity was fluctuating wildly, a sign that the reactor was going critical. Noah's jaw clenched. "That's it, we need to abandon ship now." Pulse rifle in hand, he led his squad out of the armory at a run, headed for the escape pods. But as they rounded a corner, they found a group of Sheliak troopers in the corridor ahead, setting high-yield demo charges against the walls. "Contact front," Noah roared. The humans dove for cover as the aliens opened fire, energy blasts sizzling through the air. Hunkered behind a bulkhead, Noah blind-fired his rifle around the edge, forcing the aliens to take cover. Two of Noah's crew dashed out from cover, trying to flank the Sheliak position. The aliens zeroed in on the exposed humans, cutting them down in a hail of plasma bolts. "Man down!" someone cried. Pinned by the Sheliak's relentless fire, the humans' position looked dire. Noah's gaze fell on a ruptured coolant line in the wall, spewing superheated plasma. An idea flashed through his mind. "Coolant lines!" he bellowed. "Rip 'em out!" The survivors tore the lines free. Noah held up 3 fingers, counting down. As his last finger dropped, the humans stood as one and aimed the spewing lines at the Sheliak position like fire hoses. The aliens screeched as the plasma spray engulfed them. Their shields flickered and died under the deluge, the coolant melting their armor to their hides. Howling, the Sheliak fell back in disarray. "Light 'em up!" Noah roared. Surging from cover, the humans unleashed a hail of gunfire, the hypersonic rounds tearing into the fleeing aliens. Sheliak warriors jerked and crumpled under the onslaught, neon blood spraying. The squad advanced to the escape pod bay, only to find the pods destroyed or launched. "Shit!" Noah pounded a fist against a shattered airlock. "They knew exactly what we'd do." The ship's comm system buzzed with static. Then a frantic voice cut through. "All hands, abandon ship. Repeat, all hands." The transmission cut to shrieking static. Noah whirled to face his survivors. "The hangar, it's our only shot. Move!" They sprinted to the hangar bay, but skidded to a halt at the entrance. A Sheliak strike team was ahead, wiring the remaining shuttles with explosives. "Hit 'em hard," Noah yelled. The humans charged, firing from the hip. The aliens responded with a barrage of laser fire. Noah's squad slammed into the Sheliak in a vicious melee, rifles clashing against hooked blades. A stray shot ruptured a fuel line, igniting a massive explosion that engulfed the bay and sent burning debris flying. Humans and aliens alike screamed as the inferno consumed them. Munitions crates cooked off, adding to the unfolding catastrophe. Gritting his teeth against the heat, Noah fought his way to a battered but still intact shuttle. Slamming his fist on the control panel, he sent a burst of pulse fire into a charging Sheliak's skull. Only 2 of his people made it to the shuttle with him, uniforms blackened and skin blistered. As the retribution disintegrated around them, they blasted free of the shattered hangar and away from the doomed ship. The stolen shuttle shuddered violently as Sheliak plasma beams sizzled past, the heat of their passage washing over the hull. Noah's hands flew over the controls, the damaged craft groaning in protest as he slung it through a dizzying pattern of rolls and jinks. "Micron, reroute power from life support to aft shields," Noah bellowed over the screech of overstressed drives. The ratings scrambled to obey, the feeble shielding barely absorbing a punishing salvo that made the whole shuttle shudder. A piercing proximity alert shrilled through the cockpit as fresh contacts materialized on the sensor panel. A trio of human destroyers thundering out of warp, main guns already hurling blinding torrents of fire at the Sheliak warships. The aliens whirled to face this sudden onslaught, buying the shuttle a few precious seconds. Noah's heart soared at the sight of the friendly IFFs, only to seize as a Sheliak torpedo sliced through the destroyer screen. It struck the lead ship dead center, the cataclysmic blast ripping the vessel apart from within and sending burning chunks pinwheeling off into the void. The destroyers closed ranks, trading furious broadsides with the rallying Sheliak, even as escape pods blossomed from the annihilated lead ship. The battle dissolved into a maelstrom of pulsing laser fire, strobing detonations, and arcing drive trails. Noah wrenched the shuttle into a stomach-churning twist, narrowly evading a stray plasma beam. "There!" Noah jabbed a finger at the sensor display, indicating a gutted Sheliak frigate tumbling through space, still venting atmosphere from rents in its hull. "Micron Jang, suit up. We're going to take that ship. The survivors hastily donned combat spacesuits as Noah brought the shuttle alongside the crippled Sheliak vessel. Anchoring their craft to the frigate's hull with docking clamps, they cut through into an airlock antechamber. "Weapons ready," Noah ordered as they cycled the inner hatch. "We're taking the bridge. Stay sharp and check your corners." They plunged into the alien ship, the acrid stench of burned insulation filling their helmet filters. Sheliak lettering stenciled the walls, ominously backlit by flickering emergency lights. The distant thunder of the destroyer's guns reverberated through the deck plates. A wounded Sheliak lurched from a side passage, ichor leaking from its mangled armor. Noah put a pulse round through its skull before it could even raise its weapon. They pushed forward, tense and alert. The bridge doors were buckled by an explosion, the scorched metal still warm to the touch. Noah shouldered through the gap, rifle up. A handful of injured Sheliak crewmen struggled to bring the bridge systems online, their attention fixed on the control consoles. Noah's rifle coughed twice, the armor-piercing rounds punching fist-sized holes in the aliens' backs. They crumpled bonelessly to the deck. Noah stepped over their twitching bodies and ripped a slimed interface jack from a tangle of conduits, jamming it into his suit's wrist panel. "Cover me," he grunted, his implants interfacing with the Sheliak computers. Zhang and Micron took up positions at the shattered doors, weapons trained outward. Noah's consciousness plunged into the alien network, his suit's onboard AI translating the data that flooded his mind's eye. With a thought, he brought the frigate's engines to life. The deck shuddered as the vessel clawed for forward momentum, wallowing drunkenly as maneuvering thrusters fired in a jerky, uncoordinated pattern. Gritting his teeth, Noah stabilized their course and coaxed power to the weapons, the frigate's spine bristling as turrets emerged from their housings. He targeted the Sheliak dreadnoughts savaging the human destroyers, their aft shields already buckling under the humans' relentless assault. Noah poured streams of laser fire and searing plasma into those weakened shields, the dreadnought's unarmored engine blocks laid bare. One vanished in an eye-searing fireball, the other trailing debris and venting plasma as it reeled out of formation. Noah opened a comm channel to the destroyers, his words dying in his throat as the floundering dreadnought fired a final vengeful salvo directly at the captured frigate. The bridge view screens whited out under the incoming torrent of hate. The view screen whited out in a blaze of heat and light, the world dissolving into chaos. Noah's crew evaporated under the onslaught, vanishing in the nuclear hell consuming the bridge. The shockwave slammed into him, hurling his broken body across the buckling deck and into a sparking control panel. His skull cracked against the metal, momentarily blacking out his vision. Noah clawed his way back to consciousness, his breathing ragged. Warnings shrieked in his helmet as his shattered armor bled oxygen into the roiling smoke. He tasted copper on his tongue, felt the wet rattle in his lungs that meant internal bleeding. Groaning, he pushed himself upright, shards of plasteel and metal embedded in his flesh. The bridge was an inferno, consoles detonating in showers of sparks, bulkheads warping as the temperature skyrocketed. Noah staggered to the helm, one hand clutched to the ragged wound in his side. Slumping against the control panel, he raised his head to the flickering view screen. Amid the drifting debris of the shattered Retribution, the Sheliak dreadnought's engines flared blue-white as it fled, its hull pockmarked with glowing craters. The remaining human destroyers wallowed in its wake, venting atmosphere from rents in their armor. They were in no shape to pursue. As Noah watched the dreadnought go, a cold, familiar rage ignited in his gut. He knew with unshakable certainty where it was headed. A Cella Prime, a defenseless colony of 2 million souls. 2 million, just like New Horizon, just like his family, burned to ash by Sheliak plasma. Gritting his teeth against the pain, Noah wrenched himself fully upright. He slammed his gauntlets into the helm controls, overriding the safety protocols one by one. The console screeched in protest, red lines cascading across every display. Noah answered it with a roar of pure, primal defiance. He firewalled the throttle, pouring every scrap of power into the engines. The crippled frigate bucked like a wounded animal, the deck plate screaming as the ship clawed forward under stresses it was never meant to endure. The inertial dampeners failed, the acceleration crushing Noah into his seat. He felt ribs crack, tasted fresh blood on his lips. Still, he pushed the ship harder. His sensors pinged with incoming hails from the destroyers, ordering him to break off, that the frigate couldn't take the strain. Noah blocked the transmissions, his gaze never wavering from the fleeing dreadnought. The distance closed meter by agonizing meter. The dreadnought's aft batteries erupted, ruthlessly hammering the frigate's prow. The impact shuddered through the hull, the bridge dissolving into a maelstrom of exploding consoles and raining debris. A jagged shard of metal tore through Noah's suit and into the meat of his shoulder. He hardly felt it, lost in the red haze of pain and rage. Alarms howled, a cacophony of warnings. Life support failure. Reactor containment critical, structural integrity compromised. The ship was coming apart around him, disintegrating under the brutal acceleration. Noah's vision tunneled, his world narrowing to the dreadnought. So close now he could make out the scorch marks on its hull. He was a dead man. He'd known that truth the moment the dreadnought's salvo hit, but he'd be damned if he'd go alone, damned if he'd let the Shellyak burn another world. With the last of his fading strength, Noah reached out and keyed in the command to overload the reactor. Fresh alarms screamed in protest, the computer pleading for confirmation. Noah ignored it all, spitting blood onto the flickering controls. He rammed the throttle to maximum and wrenched the helm, putting the frigate on a terminal course. The range fell to nothing, the dreadnought's hull filling the viewscreen. For a single, crystalline moment, the two ships hung together in space, locked in a fatal embrace. Then the world turned white. The reactor let go, matter and antimatter annihilating each other at the heart of the frigate. The detonation ripped through both ships, converting millions of tons of metal and composite into pure, searing light in the blink of an eye. The shockwave slammed into the wounded destroyers like the fist of an angry god, sending them careening off course. Sensor panels and viewscreens burned out instantly, the glare overwhelming optics and radiation shields alike. The EM pulse fried every unshielded system, the ships tumbling helplessly through space. As the destroyer crews clawed their way back to control, they stared out at the fading afterimage of the blast. Where the frigate and dreadnought had been, only a slowly dissipating cloud of cooling plasma and debris remained. No trace of Noah or the Shellyak remained. The crew stood in silence, the weight of Noah's sacrifice settling over them like a shroud. He'd bought them the time they needed, time to reach Acela Prime, to evacuate the colonists before the Shellyak recovered. Time to regroup, to rally the fleet and prepare for the next hammer blow. The war was far from over. The Shellyak would return, their ships darkening the skies of 100 worlds. But here now, they had been given pause. The aliens had felt the sting of human defiance, the depths of mankind's indomitable will to survive. And in that moment, the destroyer crews knew with diamond clarity that no matter what came next, humanity would never stop fighting, even to the last. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.